Hello everyone, this is CoKo Plays Riven, the sequel to Myst. This is the remake. Let me switch over to it. Let me make sure the stream is up and running. Alright, everything looks good. So I did a quick check of the graphic settings. I didn't adjust anything else. I might want to adjust the sound settings depending on how the mixing is with my voice. But I'll check that in a bit as we see how it is. This is a mouse and keyboard game, so I got my laptop tray to avoid causing too much mouse noise on the mic. And I'm just waiting for everything to look good. And I'll start in a few seconds. Got a cup of tea here to sip on. Excellent. All right. So we're going to play some Riven. Let's just start a new game. I think I had played the demo. That's probably what it's picking up. Many ages, infinite truths. Old Dunny proverb.
Thank God you've returned. I need your help. There's a great deal of history that you should know, but I'm afraid there's no time to explain. Most of what you'll need to know is in here. And for reasons you will discover, I can't send you to Riven with a way out. But I can give you this. It appears to be a linking book back here to Dunny, but it's actually a one-person prison. It's the only way to capture Gen. Here. Once you've freed Catherine, I'll come with a linking book. She'll know how to signal me. There's a very good chance, if all this goes well, that you'll be returned to the place that you came from. Until we meet again. Take care, my friend.
See ya, Atris. Good times. Alright, so I had control over the camera while he was talking to me. I have I'm going to try and intersperse my thoughts, especially since I played Riven back in the day. And although I did the demo just to check it out, this will be my first time playing through the remake. So I'm curious to see what the remake is like and what types of things they added and changed. And already, of course, there's some differences. So let's go to Riven, and then we'll continue talking about it. But before I click that, for just to set the scene for those who are new to Riven, where we are located right now is Dunny. I forget exactly like where within Dunny, but in Mist, at the end of the game, you're you encounter a linking book to Atris, and he he instructs you to get the final page to make the linking book work, and then you can go visit him just like we're doing now. And that's like the proper ending, the good ending to the game. The other choices would be to either believe either of his sons, Cirrus or Akinar. And those are fun endings to try to see what happens, but they're the bad endings because you made the wrong choice. But you don't know Atris or where he is through in the game, so it's a surprise, and you find him. And this is where you left off in Mist, so this is where Riven begins. And it looks like he summoned you again to go to Riven and get Catherine from Gen. So there should be another longer sequence right when we load into Riven. So I'll try not to talk through too much of it. Though it is taking a suspiciously long time to load. There we go. Oh, we're trapped.
Ủa? Kaliay. Kawarin. Lumawi pa man. Tagin na. Rekowa. Tage ma. Su rekowa. Isira. Isira. Mutika bukuha nai. Isira. Mutika bukuha nai. Bukuha nai. Isira. Bukuha nai. Bukuha nai. Bukuha nai.
Oh no. What happened? There's conflict already. All right, and now we are free. And the game begins. So, couple of my thoughts early on things that I've been thinking about also in terms of the remake, because I know the game so well from the original. But I am excited to explore with the freedom of movement that a fully rendered 3D environment gives you. But the game begins with two sequences where you interact with a person, and in the original, they're blue screened actors. Rand Miller being Atris, and I don't know the name of the actor who provided this character, the guard that was talking to us. I think the character is referred to as Cho because that's what he says. That's the first thing he says. I don't know if that's actually the character's name, but like he might be in the credits as Cho actually. And it's interesting because there's a lot communicated by in both of those interactions, and it helps to have the nuance of an actor's face, like the Unreal Engine fully computer generated character doesn't have enough of a live actor to show every detail of what I remember getting from in the original. So like with Atris, and they changed some of the dialogue too. So we'll start with Cho first. So with Cho, there's a lot to that interaction where he starts speaking first in his native language, like a language he's comfortable in, and when you don't respond to him, he switches to another language. The real world player does not know either of these languages; they're made up. But you can tell that he's doing this by just the way he's struggling to get his words out, and so you pick up that he's kind of surprised by you being there, sort of. And he's trying to figure out who you are, and he's talking to you, and he's not getting responses, so he's trying a different language. And then he's hit with a dart that knocks him out. Now, let me go check while we're here. They're giving me some instructions. There he is. We got a Steam, what are those called? Accolade? For finding his body. But yeah, that was an Easter egg kind of thing in the original game too, where if you clicked and looked off the cliff, you saw his body down there. I don't think he's dead. I think he's knocked out because he can appear later in the game. But then, whoa, hey. So that transportation is going. That didn't happen in the original game, where you got to see it move before you got to the area. I like that touch, though. We'll see what it might mean as far as the story. We'll talk about that. But for making the world feel more alive and interactive, that's a nice touch to see things actually, being used in the world. But. So he gets hit by a poison dart, and then we have the other character whose face is hidden, wearing entirely different clothing, who knocks him out with a dart and drags his body away, and then jams the landing area open so that the bars, which are configured to close when someone arrives in here, and like their weight goes on that pressure plate or something, and the gate will close, and then that's, I guess, their way to do safety checks for people coming in, and more specifically for Atris arriving with the linking book to Riven that he has. So someone is expecting Atris to show up, or a representative of Atris or something. Probably not us though. And so they've got this cell set up right at the spot where the linking book is gonna drop you off. And it looks really nice. And it's cool that you can go in all directions around it and inspect it. That will be a fun part of playing this remake, is getting closer to and seeing more of the details of the brilliant design to the things in the world, just like many of the Myst games. Yeah, so I think having the actor playing Cho was um, more immersive, because the Uncanny Valley thing is still there, with a character, a computer rendered character whose face you're trying to read like it was a human, both with Atris and Cho, and then also getting more of the nuance of their performance out. Um, is easier to do when it's a person playing the role. When you meet Atris, there's also changes to that dialogue. He's much more explicit in this version about what's going on. Not in a bad way, but like he tells you the order of how he tells you things is a little different, so that it's clearer what your objective is. I don't think it was totally unclear, because the problem so much isn't that like it's unclear what he wants you to do, because he doesn't tell you like exactly. You got to figure out the puzzles, but it's just that you spend so much time in Riven between the time he says those things to you, that you might kind of forget exactly what it was that ultimately you want to achieve, and that's why he gives you the satchel full of books. Let's see how I get that. Alright, so I pressed escape. That's not going to be it, but we can go check out the controls real quick. Did I miss it? You could zoom in a little too, that's nice. There we go. So tab pulls out your satchel. It's like a messenger bag. And then you can read the book that Atris gave you. I don't intend to read it on screen, in part because I know the game really well, and I doubt the text has changed. But if you haven't played any of the Myst games before, or Riven, it always helps, and in some cases is absolutely necessary to read it. And for me, like that's a bonus to these games, is like there's a great joining of the lore and the world design with the puzzles, especially in Riven more than the rest. And so the more you know about what's going on in the world and the people and their headspace, the better you understand the puzzles you're seeing. And it's, especially in Riven, it's necessary to complete the game to have a really like good understanding of what's going on in this world. Like you can get through it without maybe knowing every nuance and picking up on every detail. But it's not like the kind of the game where you can look at something, know that it's a puzzle, and you know, try option 1, try option 2, try option 3. Something works, you get a response, you keep going, do the next thing. Next thing you know, you've beaten the game, and you know whether or not you picked up on any of the backstory is optional. But not for Riven. Riven, it's not so optional. Like there are some blockers that you'll hit if you don't have a working understanding of this place that you're in. Okay, so if I right-clicked out of it, that put my book away. Yeah, so right away, you know, you're faced with some details that they present you. So the person who jammed the um, the the cell open did so with this like knife, this dagger, and it's got this pattern to it, this circle with a line through it, and there's a huge one right there, which allows you then to kind of go look at its design detail. And what's cool is that right next to it is the cell that you've been put in, and they look dramatically different. So just like the languages being used and the clothing of the two characters you've seen in Riven so far, it's reinforcing the idea that there's two groups of people at least. And yeah, you don't know any more beyond that at this point. Yeah, and then you can start reading, and you get some more backstory, but not like everything, especially about this aspect of Riven. But it's really clever way to give narrative information about the world to the player, where it comes through the design of the surroundings, and they're motivated by the story of the game and the story of what the player experiences, and that both helps you like take it seriously and also helps you find it, like pay attention to it, because after that character jams this thing open, it's very natural to go like look at it and see what they were doing. Like, oh, like they hammered something into this, like I should go take a look. And you might try and like operate the lever and just kind of see that, hey, it's not working, it's stuck, and you go down and you look at the dagger. So if it was just there from before, you might not have noticed it or thought about it, but because it happens while you're looking, it's a detail that now the game has made you focus on it without trying to tell you, hey, look at this knife. Isn't it different than these gold-plated objects that you see? You don't have to pick all that up at once, but it's something that you'll see throughout the game, especially the early stages, so that you can start learning about the world. So it's quite brilliant as far as like game development. Okay. I want to talk more about some of the early game setting for Riven, but I'll like look around at some of these objects and talk about them. So yeah, like you wouldn't know it yet, but this is also the ending area, and so you can just start playing with stuff and interacting with things. They've adjusted how this works from the base game, the original, where this viewing is, so you can see the stars in there, but I can't like click to go fully in, I think, right now. But there's a viewing device here that wasn't in the original game. It was this thing here. So you'd look in and you'd see the stars that are part of the Starfisher, which is how Atris tells you to signal him. So I guess this is just a way to get a better look at them. In order to, I think you have to open, yeah, the controls have been adjusted on this. They used to be down there, but there's a way to open like a hood so that you can see through the telescope part of this. They might have removed that because you can see stars already. It broke off. What? That's funny. Alright, so the control station has been moved to over here. And they give you that interaction almost as like a, I don't know, partial joke for players who are familiar with the base game, the original game. And also, I guess, to draw your attention away from trying to interact there. So you can see these pipes leading to and from the mechanical devices. So they're steam powered, as many of the things in the Mist worlds are. And we haven't yet channeled the steam over to here. So I'm hearing some of the sound effects. There's like a very slight whirring noise if I go close to the pipe. So there'll probably be, just like in the original game, there'll be some sound effects to give us an idea if there's steam actively going through these pipes. So they expanded this area in the remake, and there's a platform down here. I came to this when I played the demo real quick, because you could... The demo was only on this starting island, so I got to run around a little bit. So they moved a few of the things around, but in the original game, you couldn't progress further than these devices. But here you can walk back and see that there's something else to access down here when you find the path down. Yeah, and being a fully 3D world, it's nice to have the water effects. There were things like water effects in the original game. It wasn't completely static, but all being rendered by a single graphics engine is gonna feel more natural. But it's an interesting thing, because like I think nowadays graphical capabilities are definitely good enough to render a fully realistic world with the level of detail that they would have put into their designs. But the thing that made the Myst games great was that their artwork could be as detailed as they wanted to make it, and they made it incredibly richly detailed, so that you didn't need any sophisticated computing power to display static images, and the images themselves could have as much richness as they needed, not constrained by computer hardware, computer limitations of any kind, with maybe the exception of like display technologies, resolution, color, depth, maybe a little bit of that, maybe more than a little bit of that. But as far as like design and detail, for those of us who've lived through the development of gaming since the early days, we're used to the idea that like detail got added as computer capabilities got greater, but Myst doesn't fit into that general progression, because those games used pre-rendered images that were packaged with the game and put on screen when you clicked in the appropriate place. So the other thing that changes is also your relationship to the clicks, right? In a fully 3D world, I can walk wherever I want, and I can look at anything I want from any angle. Mostly, like, yeah, there's like walls and stuff, but I have a lot of freedom of movement. I could go like 2 inches one way, 2 inches the other way. Look at it from a low angle, from a high angle. Lots of different choices. That's kind of nice, but at the same time, in the click-based system, you were going through a progression and a perspective that was deliberately chosen by the game designers. So you were seeing exactly what you needed to see and no more, in a sense. And they could control the way you looked at objects so that you can get the aha moments that you needed at the right times. And they were good at designing that. Like they didn't force it upon you, but they had more control in how they organized the flow of information that the player would receive by having stricter control over the perspectives with which you look at the world. So that'll be another difference to being able to walk around fully. Like I remember when like the Myst, Real Myst came out a long time ago. It wasn't better than the original Myst. Like the game was not enhanced by having full 3D movement. The world was not rich enough to need that. It just added noise, and noise to any system is generally not preferred. And like with a click-based system, some noise is in there in the sense that there are more rendered points of view than the ones strictly needed for puzzles, right? There are points of view to make navigation work, to give you the ability to feel like you're immersed in the environment, and you as a player don't necessarily know which of those screens are like the important ones as you're clicking around. So it's not the case that like it's made easier by the fact that it's stripped down to limited points of view. There's still richness to those perspectives. It's just that any more than that isn't necessarily adding anything to it. But we'll see with Riven, because a big part of the fun of this game is feeling like you're here in Riven on these islands, as you can see. And like looking between them, making like kind of educated guesses about what's going on, about what these like steam pipes are, and those pipes there, and train system. So it might be the case that actually having like full freedom of movement and like seeing things from different perspectives is going to be really great here. We'll see. So, religious iconography. Lovely atmospheric music. So they added these viewpoints, or I might say expanded on. So, and this is a clue, a more obvious clue to how this room works than the base game gave you. So there are 5 sides to the room. It's pentagonal. Each of them has one of these viewports to look into the room from the place where you can manipulate the room's orientation. And you can look in but not out in the original. and they've added it as like a window that makes it. I mean, firstly, it tells you, there's something over here that you might not have known, so you can go hunt for it. But it'll also help you to orient the room. Let's go see how they've done this door. Okay, so it's a similar principle. So it's a door that appears locked, and in the original game you would crawl underneath it. So it's kind of the same thing, where they just changed the gimmick and made it so that you push the door off its hinge. But it's the knife. Whoa. Is that rumbling from the train? Maybe? I guess so. Yeah, and they've adjusted these things here. Like, you can see the dome very clearly from the beginning of the game, whereas that dome is not visible in the original game until you make it through the room. And even after that, you might miss it. So yeah, crawling under the door wouldn't be the cleanest of maneuvers with fully 3D real-time system. You'd need like to introduce a crawl action, and like that'd be silly. So this is a better way to employ that gag. The gag definitely gets people. I've seen people play Riven and like try and get through this door, and it's shut, and you just go, oh, I guess I can't open it yet, and you leave and don't come back. But having the knife to pull your eye towards a hint or something to try, it's not too hard to figure out. Like in a click-based game where there's limited places you can go from each point of view, like you can do a lot by just clicking around. So maybe that's just periodic quaking because of the instability of the world. Yeah, that's probably what it is. Adding more feeling of like being there to the world. Yeah, it's kind of cool to be able to move the camera around as if have your face in the mirror. Not mirror, in the window. So yeah, here you get the idea that you're looking in on the room from the faces of the wall. And it helps to know that, because like you're looking directly at one of the beetles, and each of the walls faces one of the corners. It's a property of a pentagonal shape, and so it helps you figure out the orientation. Alright, so we can move through the room, make some progress there, but let's kind of explore the other side of this island first. Yeah, so the reason the world is like vibrating and there's like kind of earthquakes happening is, and this is all covered in the book that Atris gave you. Gen is, so Riven is starting to fall apart as a world. These islands are drifting further apart, and the fifth one is not even like closely accessible enough to go by like train or close range transportation. So there's a linking book to get you there later in the game. But it's one of the consequences of the instability that's present in the world that's threatening to end it, and is an existential threat for the people that live in this world. Atris has the Riven book, and he's actively writing in it to try and keep this world going as long as possible to get Catherine and ideally all the citizens out before it falls apart. And they talk about some of the philosophical debates present amongst the Dunny that are part of the backdrop here, which is when you've got these worlds that can be linked to by the books that they write. Are you creating these worlds by writing them, or do they exist and you are linking to them by writing such a book that describes it? And it's like a philosophical debate the Dunny had going back to before Gen's time. But that power that they have leads some of them to believe that, you know, they create these worlds and therefore, you know, they're the gods of them. And that's what Gen believes with Riven. And he's not as skilled in the craft as the previous Dunny masters were. And so he's acting as a god of this world, but he's also not able to write it properly. So it's kind of faulted from its design, and is starting that those faults are starting to cause bigger and bigger problems. And that pairs nicely thematically with his role as deity of this world. Like, it's kind of like a root problem in its construction, you know, culturally and geologically. So it's good story stuff. So they've added a door here. Oh. Whoa. I don't remember if the design of the door was exactly like this, with the open arms. But yeah, by starting you on this island and giving you that rotating room with the religious-y texts, images, and then this room, which, you know, very much looks like a temple of some kind, with like an altar, which at some point you get to see Gen's head projected in here, and he talks to his people. And you got the Wark, which is the whale creature that is present in Riven and looks like and is used as like a religious figure, a symbol of power, specifically Gen's authority. So, you know, if you're starting the game for the first time, you're dropped into this world, and these are the first two rooms you interact with. Even though you can't do much, like, gameplay-wise, like puzzle-wise, you get a lot of lore to think about. They don't tell you this backstory that I know from playing the game, but you know, it's implicit in the design. Like, this feels like a temple church type room. And the sound has like a spiritual, and also like foreboding element to it. You know, you're gonna get the sense that Gen and like his religious system is one of control, not really one of, you know, being a nice god, though he might think he is. I'm sure he does think he is. I guess I forgot this from when I played the demo. That's not true. I didn't forget. I just like, I knew that they moved the room. I just forgot that this door led directly to this temple. So in the original, there's another room off this hallway that they have moved in the remake. And that's the one that we saw from the starting point. That was, if you look down, there was a bridge. So the room that they moved is the room that's the projection room for Gen's head being shown in the temple. So they moved a little further away, and in that room, the only thing that you can do that's, like, I guess, like, relevant is to open the exterior door that then takes you to the train that goes to the next island to continue learning about the world and progressing through the puzzles. So now what they're doing by moving that room is they're forcing you to go through at least part of this puzzle. So they're giving you, they're creating a kind of linearity, or enforcing a linearity to the early part of the puzzles of this world. You've got to, like, get through this door and see what's beyond before you proceed through with the rest of the game. It's a fair choice. The reason being, like, much of Riven is, like, ultimately it's like one puzzle. The whole game is basically one puzzle. And everything else is just kind of like steps to completing that one puzzle. Basically. And you don't know what that puzzle is, or that it even exists, when you arrive. And you find it on the other side of this room where that big golden dome is. And so I think many players, like myself when I played the game, the original to start with, I just made it through that room and then continued to the next island, and then just continued from there, and then encountered the fact that there was this giant gold dome over here, and what was available there much later. It's no biggie, but it changes, like, the way you start thinking about the world if you know that puzzle exists earlier. Alright, so I was just kind of talking and not really thinking about how much I was moving the room around, but, you know, this would be the kind of thing that, like, when you first play the game, it helps to draw a diagram on paper of, you know, the 5 sides of this room and each of the doors and what they have. So there's, I think, 4 doors for a 5-sided. There's 1. So immediately to the right is the one that we have already accessed. Oh no, there's 5 doors. There's 5 doors there's five doors for all 5 sides. To the right of that one is a pathway towards the smaller dome, the smaller spinning dome. To the left is a pathway that opens up the steam valve for the end game stuff, those contraptions near where we started. And then the door that we can see visible from here, like the one that as a player doing this for the first time, you'd be most curious to get to, that door leads to the big gold dome, which is, you know, the most interesting of them. And there's two doorways for those 5 doors, and you can move the dome from like 3 or 4 of the doors, the exits, and so it's like these 2 doorways form like an L shape where they come in here, skip this one side, and then go to that side. So from the perspective of this door, like we had to start with, if we press the button to rotate it clockwise 2 times, that door then comes to where this door was, and this door is now moved 2 faces to this side. And so that's enough. You know, 2 doors, 1 in, 1 out, allows you to get from anywhere to anywhere pretty much. And there's 5 exits, and I think 4 of them have the button to move it. So you never get stuck. It's just a couple instances where you might have to, like, you know, be a little tedious and move it around to get to where you want to go. So now we entered the room through this way, but there's still like a gate over this doorway that prevents us from going through. So we got to pull that down. I forget, there were buttons to lower these things at a couple places. I guess not this one. But what we can do is we can press the button 2 more times. And that should allow us to go somewhere new. So if we do it 1 more time, gotta get close enough. So 1 more time, we can enter the room and then see this exit. So in the original game, there was 2 sets of doors here. There was one behind this, and you had no idea that there was anything there was a door, so you knew something was beyond that, but you couldn't see the dome. And that door you couldn't open unless, like, you made it to the other side of this room and got around. So I guess they removed that door from the game, which is fine. And now you know that there's this thing here immediately. Okay, so now from this side we'll have access to the last side that we haven't seen. Got a way to spin it. All right, here's one of the latches. So this goes up. Okay, yeah. So that's moving that metal gate up. Or not this one. It must be the one for this. Yeah, for here. Yeah, so having these as windows now allows you to do this confirmation check, which is kind of cool. In the original, the window wasn't, you couldn't look through it, probably because they just didn't want to, like, render those screens. I don't know, I'm guessing on that. But there was a hole in the wall at the spot where you would expect it. And so it was a nice detail, because once you realize how this room works, and you figure out that you got the rotating components, and you got the 5 sides, and you got doors at, you know, all 5 locations, but even if you don't know it's all 5, you got doors at some of these spots. and you can look through, then you might ask, like, where am I looking through? What's the angle I have on this room? And you realize that it's right in the middle of one of the sides. And so you go, well then, but that's just a wall. Like, if I go back there, there should be an indication that there's a way to look through here. And there is. There's in the original game, not a whole window, but there's a little hole in the brick that you go, oh, okay, so that's what I'm looking through. And it's a nice, like, it's a nice detail that, you know, gives you more, like, of a comfort level with the designers of the game, where you're rewarded for kind of like putting together how the thing works and then deriving relevant questions from that, and seeking out if your hypothesis is true. And that's, like, relevant to the gameplay, because that's how the puzzles of Riven work. Like, you figure out how the world works, and you go, okay, well, if that's how it works, then this should be here. And you go find that thing, and it's there. And that's how you make progress. So here you don't need it to make progress, but that type of thinking is a good thing to have when you're going through the Myst games, especially Riven. So this allows us to push the steam, channel the steam to, I believe, yeah, like the starting area. So now those controls have power. Alright, so if we want to get through this door, we need to raise it, which I guess is going to be from here. So we need this door to be, this door frame to be there. And then when we do that, this one will be here. So it should work to just stay here. So there were a couple things about the start of the game that I neglected to speak about because I wanted to let, like, the game open up, you know, organically. And now that I actually started playing, all I've been doing is, you know, deconstructing it and telling you everything about the world and not allowing you to live through the game. So, okay, you know, I got too excited. That's on me. But since I'm doing that, I might as well deconstruct what I like about the way this game begins. You know, both in the original and in the remake, and as it exists as a contrast to Myst. So, in Myst, the neat thing about Myst, from both within the game's universe and, like, in the real world and, like, the era and time of computer gaming, there's no real introduction that you get to the world and what you're there to do. And, you know, games, the whole, you know, it wasn't as clear what the genre of the game was either. And so there really wasn't a ton to let you know what was going on when you started the game Myst. You put in, like, Myst came out on discs and CD, and it was, like, I think, like, it was the best-selling CD-ROM game of all time. That was, like, one of the marketing blurbs that was on the box and stuff. So you put in the CD, you load up the game, and you're presented with what we would now know as a linking book. So you see a book with an image in it of Myst Island, and you click on it, and then you're just there. And nobody greets you, nobody says anything, there's nobody even there to greet you. And, you know, through trial and error, you click and walk around. And there's nothing really that you can learn from the design of the environment so much. And frankly, you can't really make any progress unless you find Catherine's note that tells you, or is it Atris's note? Somebody's note. That tells you to, yeah, it's Atris's note to Catherine that tells you to put the number of the marker switches into the imager, and then you get an intro message that was intended for Catherine. You as the player don't know who you are yet. You're like, maybe I'm Catherine, maybe I'm not, but probably not. And then that like gives you a clue to how to start the game as far as like getting into the puzzles. And then the puzzles are very regimented. You figure out the tower rotation to activate the world to activate the puzzle that leads you to the world. You go to the world, you do the puzzles in that world, you come back with the pages for the red book and the green book, blue book, and you kind of do this. You figure out the pattern of the game, and you just do that until the game's over. And then a little twist at the end where instead of like figuring out which of the brothers to trust, you figure out, oh, Atris is the person I should listen to. And like you get to that point, but the game starts with absolutely nothing. And Riven, it flips that. Riven, you are told exactly what's going on. It might be in vague and not as much like instructional information as you might want, but your overall goal is given to you right away by a person that you're interacting with, and that sends you on this quest. And it's like it's brief and quick, but it's exactly what you need, both in the terms of the setting of the world. Like, okay, Gen has Catherine on Riven. You're going to get her. I'll come with you when you're done. I'll come get you when you're done. Here, go. And so it's very different from Myst, and it's a welcome change, especially after, because like the Myst kind of like stumbling on to this linking book and going to this world is fun the first time. There's a verisimilitude to you're somewhere in the player's universe, going about your day. You find this book, you put your hand on it. Now you're in this place called Myst, I guess, and you go on and you go figure out what the heck's going on, and you uncover things and you keep going. So that worked once, but you can't do the same thing again. It's a sequel. You're coming back to Myst. So it's much more appropriate that Atris is there and he says, here's what you're doing, go do it. And what that allows the game design to do then is to start going in depth. And so Riven is much more about depth than Myst could have been. I think Myst is almost like a prototyping ground for the type of gaming that they wanted to do and did in Riven, where the story of the world intersects with the puzzle gameplay mechanic, and it's a beautiful marriage between the two. The marriage is created by the design of the worlds, which is presented to you through the magic of computers. This new world of computer games. So that was the premise of it. And in Myst, it was like prototyping like the different ideas for how that might work. And very almost like explicitly in the design, where there's 4 different worlds, they're each a little different, but you're like scratching the surface of them. Even with the books that tell you the details behind them, it's like there's not really much going on here. But Riven is much deeper than those. And so by getting an introduction, you're setting yourself up for walking into this world and then being met by immediate complexity. Like you've been sent on a quest to go capture Gen, free Catherine, signal Atris. So that's your 3-step goal. Immediately, you're prevented from doing any of those things. You're trapped in a cell. The fake linking book that's going to trap Gen is taken from you, and you don't get it back. And some people that you don't know who they are show up, kill some guy, let you, set you free, but don't stick around to allow you to like ask further questions. So what you thought you were going to go do has now been taken from you. So you're kind of back to square one, like in Myst, where you're like, oh, now what? And that's a lovely, that's a much richer game conceit, because you still have the backstory of the quest, the goal that you had in mind, but you can't. You have to set your brain as a Riven player to, oh, I can't just think of this as a straightforward click this button, solve that puzzle, get to the end. No, it's not going to be straightforward. It's going to be something that's a bit more abstract, let's say. I have to take a step back, think about where I am, think about what I'm seeing, and that will lead me to making progress, and that's exactly what Riven's about. So they clue you in on that by the way they set up the opening of the game, both within itself and also as a contrast to Myst. So it's one of my favorite things about Riven. All right, so we raised the other gate that was barring our passage. So yeah, they move things around. So now this dome is directly accessible from this doorway, which is convenient. And the clicker, the viewfinder, is right here. I think this one is the dot. Yep. So, interesting. I might try that again. But let's take a look in here. Whoa. Whoa. Wild. I don't have control over the camera? Alright, I'm not sure exactly what that was. But what? This is wild. Whoa. Holy crap. Now, I tried the demo out. I don't know if I tried this in the demo. It doesn't matter that I played the demo. I'm going to stop mentioning that. But comparing it to the original, yeah, this is completely different. So first off, the thing that struck me initially was when I stepped into the dome, I'll backtrack before that. So you learn when you play Riven that these spinning domes can be stopped by clicking the viewfinder when the symbol corresponding to that specific dome is visible through the viewfinder. And it's kind of designed to be a pseudo puzzle where you could just click the viewfinder because it's a button and we all love pressing buttons, and then something happens, and then you ask yourself, well, why did that work? Why did that happen? And you might not figure out the symbols for the domes immediately, but eventually you figure that out because you have to as part of the puzzles of the game. And then once you know that, yeah, you could just press it. There's another hint in the original game, which is the symbols going around the dome are an eye opening and closing. So the eye with a dot in the middle is a fully open eye with just a pupil. And then the eyelid closes and opens back up. And those are all the stages of the eye that you see. The symbol specific to the dome in the original was printed in gold. And so even if you don't know what it means, or that it's a symbol, or that it's for this dome, you know it's different because it looks different. And you can register that even with the resolution of like the base game, of the original game, that like this gold symbol is different. And when you're looking through the viewfinder, it stands out a little bit too. They're going by quickly, one of them is kind of gold, you go, what? And so you got this thing that clicks, and you got this thing going by that every so often it looks like gold is going by, like a different color. So naturally you think to yourself, what if I click when that gold is going by? And that's probably how many people figured out how to open these domes. Now, I thought I saw that the gold symbol was not present for the dome, that there wasn't a special color, an inlay for the marking for the symbol of this dome. So I wanted to confirm that, but then I went up to the dome, and the second thing happened that was different than the original, which is that the dome closed around me automatically. In the original game, you pushed a button where the linking book is stored, and that kind of toggled the mechanism for the dome to close so that it could power up by spinning. And powering up meant giving power to the linking book so that you could use the linking book, assuming that you had connected the power of the small domes to the big dome, which is something we'll get to later. So then I was like, okay, so it's interesting that the dome closed around me. I guess it just happens automatically now. And then I looked down, and instead of a linking book, I'm met with this. Oh. Okay, so yeah, so it just happens whenever you just walk in or out for the first time, like a pressure plate, similar to the entry trap cell that you drop into, I think. So this is the symbol of the dome. It's the circle with the dot in the middle. So yeah, that just happens automatically now. You don't have to push anything. You just have to step into it. And yeah, you can see the pressure plate segmented out from the surrounding metal. Okay, that's something. So that when you get off it... Okay, so yeah, when you're standing on it, or I guess any change to its weight triggers the change. But yeah, there is no hint in the color now of the symbol. Very interesting. That's probably like some of the changes that I've observed so far from the original are things that kind of help you figure out puzzles more quickly. This one is the first change that we've encountered that removes information. And I like it. It removes exactly what I was talking about, where You might not know exactly what's going on, but you click this thing, and so the symbol is visible now. Like now it's a circle and a dot in it. So you can still figure out the fact that when the dome stops, and it's persistent, which is a nice change. Yeah, so in the original, you have a fraction of a second when the dome stops to see the final symbol, which is the symbol representing this particular dome, before the dome opens and nothing is visible through the viewfinder. So if you don't like capture that symbol within that second and a half, you miss it, and you have to do it again, which is fine. But this way, it's persistent. Like there's a state in the viewfinder. I don't know exactly what it's seeing though. Actually, kind of scary. Some of those things that fall in the earthquake. But yeah, this is the symbol of the dome, so you know. You can always refer to it. And now you can also refer to it, see through that window where it's showing you the same symbol leading to this dome. So that's another clue that they've added in the remake, where in the gold dome room, you can now go up to the power pipes leading up out to each of the smaller domes, and there's a symbol from the window that looks out of the dome, so you can piece together what's the relationships here. That there's a big dome and there's smaller domes connected to the big dome, and they each got a symbol representing each of the domes. Like this is stuff you have to figure out in Riven. That for me, it basically takes the whole game. Like it's a very interactive process, like a dynamic process of like putting each of these pieces together and realizing that each of these domes has a symbol, that each of these symbols mean something, that each of these domes is connected to the big dome, that there's a power relationship between these things. Like it's a step-by-step process to realize all these things, and they're giving you a few big clues with the remake, not like in a way that ruins the game, but like allows you to make these connections earlier and more strongly and quickly. So other than the animated people, I'm enjoying the real 3D rendered world quite a bit. And they made a few changes to make that work better that I like. So now we get down here and we're in the fissure. So this is a fascinating thing. So just from this vantage point, we can see the bottom half of this small gold dome with like a fog around it, like almost like a quasar or nebula or something. And then we can see others out here with like the same kind of structure of scaffolding connected to the bottom half of a gold dome that's split down the middle. So we're in the star fissure, and we see like celestial objects. We get stars in the background, and then some kind of like celestial objects moving by, like galaxy or something, which is weird, but you gotta sell the idea. Whoa, that's a weird direction that took. Yeah, I presume that that's supposed to be a celestial object and not like a man-made thing. but who knows? So this scaffolding takes us like partially into the Starfisher. And in the middle-ish, there's like a platform. So that looks like a dome thingy, like a gray dome in the middle, I guess. And then some kind of like a quartz-looking square, a cube stone with these glyphs on it that are like circular, concentric circles and like a geometric shape as a background. And it kind of gives the vibes of like a power source, or like a something you would channel power through, perhaps. And that platform is connected to one of the domes. So, you know, if we get to that dome and walk out on the scaffolding, we can access whatever this thing is. So now we know that. I'm not sure if the scaffolding will connect all of these domes together at some point. I'm not sure why it would have to. So these are the... I mean, because I've played the game, I can tell you that these are the domes from the other islands on Riven. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5, the one that we just came in on. I didn't talk about 5 yet, but 5 is the magic number for Wrist and for Riven, and I'll explain more about that later. But Riven is the 5th age. The symbol for 5 in the Dunny system of numbering is a horizontal line, and you've already seen that in the world a bunch of times up till this point. You just not like, as a player, you might not recognize that it's important or what it means just yet, but it's the symbol of Riven, and it has like a deep like mythology around it. Like there's like a kind of like the Holy Trinity type idea. There's a woven into the myth of the world is the idea of the importance of the number 5, and Gen uses that to his advantage, or for his purposes, not really to his advantage, in many ways. And then that, therefore, it's connected to a lot of the puzzles and a lot of your understanding of how the world works. Whoa, look at this thing. That came like pretty close to me. So I guess that's like a star. I don't know. Or maybe like a, yeah, like a nebula, like a emitting light. Okay. So yeah, there's five domes for the 5 islands of Riven. 4 of them are connected in the world of Riven through normal transportation. The 5th one you need to get through a different means, which was a linking book in the original game, which I don't know what it's going to be here, because the linking book, well, linking book to the 5th age was not, to the 5th island was not in these domes, but there was a linking book to a different place, which I'll talk about later, that got you there. So they've adjusted that. So we'll see how all this connects now. But I'm intrigued, not just that they changed it, but that it's this specifically, that we're in the Starfisher partially when we go into these domes. So this is like a fascinating thing, because there's a relationship between the Starfisher and everything happening in the mythology of the Myst games. That it's kind of like it simulates what we know of the real world, like in the real universe. is a big universe with galaxies that have stars, that have planets, and those planets are worlds that potentially could be inhabited, that could potentially have people with stories and all sorts of stuff going on, and maybe we could link to them and go visit them. So that's what's behind the linking books in this fantasy world here, which is, okay, linking books transport you to these worlds, but there's also this fabric of like the universe that these worlds exist in, and that's what the Starfisher is. So conceivably, if you could travel through the Starfisher, you could also travel between these worlds. It's like the long way, whereas using the linking books is the shortcut that these clever dunny people have figured out. And spoiler alert for the end of Riven, but you get to Atris hints in his conversation with us at the beginning of the game that maybe you get to go back to where you came from. And the language he uses is a little bit different from the original too, but I think he says, if everything goes right, I may be able to get you back to where you came from. And the way he achieves that is by sending you into the Starfisher, which is the thing we're looking at now. And it's not explicitly shown that you arrive home, but if you've been following along with like the backstory of the world and Atris's journey, you should feel a little confident that he knows what he's doing and that you will arrive home by exiting Riven and going into the Starfisher at the location where you did. And the reason I say that is because Atris took that journey, and that's how the linking book that he lost that leads to Mist Island was left where we found it. So Atris himself puts this together and has a working theory that, oh, okay, so you can travel through the Starfisher and get to these worlds. And so, hey, if I send this guy to leave Riven the same way I left it that time when I escaped from Gen, then he should arrive where I did, which was his world, and that's where that's where my linking book ended up. So Atris linked out when he escaped from Gen, but his linking book fell into the fissure, and that's what we found. So that's Atris's working theory. It's probably right. So now we get to see the Starfisher early on, which is really cool.
You'll need to unlock your computer first.
Oh, sorry about that. I think when I was saying Atris's name, I said an S word that sounded like what she was listening for. Yeah, so in our reality, the player's reality, our Starfisher, we got celestial objects that are connected in space-time by space-time itself, and then those objects are that matter has mass, and they collect together and warp space-time with their gravity that is a consequence of their mass. And that's how we interact with the fabric of our reality. So the question is, how is this kind of working such that sorry, I was trying to hold back that cough. How is it working so that these domes are like partially in the world itself, and then the other half of them are connected to the Starfisher? So that's an interesting way to deepen the lore of Riven and the Mist universe. Wait, no. There was that other thing I wanted to touch. was standing right next to it, waiting for me to stop talking so I could go see what that device was that you could click on. And, you know, at the last second I forgot. And this whole animation takes forever. So it's kind of funny how, like, they introduced a couple things to reduce the tedium of some of the mechanisms in the original game, like the rotating room and the way the domes open and close, just by randomly clicking on the viewfinder. But then this animation, and I'm prevented from entering, takes forever. So I can go all the way around the dome. That's kind of cool. And I can see that room over there, which from the demo I know what it is. It's the room that was moved from its original location in the original game, off that path leading to the. Oh no, I'm wrong. That big window is the temple itself. It's not the room. We'll get to that in a second. All right. I'm just gonna. I want to go see what that device is. Click too soon. Click too soon. So we had zip mode in the early point-and-click mists. Yeah, the sound effects. I might adjust the volume, for me at least, of the sound effects, because every time they come on, I start talking louder to compensate for the volume of the sound effects. That's probably unnecessary. But they're not like... The balance is quite good because the sound effects are quite important to, like, figuring out puzzles and stuff. Okay. Okay, so we loaded a ball, and then we loaded it, and it's blinking towards the end of the scaffolding, which is also towards that center device, which might be like a receiver of some kind. I'm curious just what else we can do. There's a button. So now it's not blinking. The edge of the scaffolding is still blinking though. Oh no, it was blinking. I just didn't have the right angle, I think. Yeah, it's a little funny, like, there's some... If I stop here, I can't tell that there's a flashing. But if I'm, like, here... Oh. Yeah, to be honest, I'm not sure. I thought I saw it flashing from a point of view. Let me go farther down. So those two things are flashing, and they were not flashing when I first came down here. So let's see what else there is that we can adjust. So we can click on, like if we click in this direction, it just kind of gives us this point of view of like this bulb and then looking in the direction of that device. It's motivating us to think about that relationship. But what I want to do is interact with these other things. So the button is not doing an obvious thing right now. Now what I was hoping I'd be able to try out this ball mechanism again. But I don't believe that I can. It might be a one-time activation mechanism. So it could be that what I did was I loaded up one of these balls, which kind of feel like they're they're an illumination source, but there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. Now, why is there? If there's one of these for each of the domes, which feels like that's what it would be, there's 5 balls for each of those. Why would there be 5? Now, the number of balls that you load might correspond to the number of the island, and this might be the first island. The number 1 in the Dunny symbol is a vertical line, but these are I symbols, not numbers. So if there is an importance to the ordering of these islands, then the fact that 1 ball was loaded in might be an indication that this is the first island. So we'll keep an eye on that. We'll see what happens at the next ones. But the fact that the button doesn't seem to change anything about its state is a little curious. Maybe like when the rest of them are operational, that'll do something. But I don't know. Or maybe when like the central one, I don't know about that, is operational. But I don't appear to be able to like reset this. So that's where we're at. So I'll just leave it as it is, and we will continue. Alright. I want to keep playing, but I might want to take a break. And then come back in like a half hour or so. I talked a lot. I couldn't help myself in doing like a bit of a Riven discussion. I'm thinking to myself like, what the best way to present these different things are. Like, my analysis of Riven and the Myst games that exists before the remake, I think is interesting because I'm a huge fan of specifically Riven and the Myst games in general, and the reasons I stated in this this opening video to the remake playthrough are why I like these games so much and continue to like them. And there's more to that than what I said, and it's kind of cool to say it while playing because I can connect it to something that's happening in the gameplay, even if I kind of stop like I am now and just keep talking. There's usually something that I see or interact with that motivates those thoughts, but a lot of it is like not connected to my gameplay. I'm just rambling on and on, so I wonder if that would be better as like its own separate exercise, and then playing through the game can be just like playing as if I don't know what's going on, or at least I kind of hide all my knowledge of Riven and my experience with the original game while I'm playing it, and allow for that illusion of watching someone, you know, play through it for, let's say, the first time. So I could do that. We'll see. But I don't have like too strong feelings, especially since I don't have you know, a ton of followers to have feedback for this. I feel like there could be value to doing this like interactive walkthrough, almost like a tour of like, let me show you this place that I know and talk about it. So I can see both sides. But since I've been talking a lot, I'm going to take a break, and we'll pick up with the stream maybe later tonight, maybe tomorrow, or the next day. We'll see. I'll actually try saving. So I think I do have a save from... yeah, so I think beyond the demo, maybe when the game was released, I downloaded it and like played it and like opened it once. I really don't remember that. But it seems to be what I had done. I didn't make any progress. Like, that's right at the starting area. So maybe I should just delete that save because I'm not going to use it. Anyway, we'll worry about that later. All right, everyone. See you soon.